checked myself a lot in the last decade. And to be honest, when people say like, oh, I love DeVal, you're watching growth from me having children and being married. Because a lot of people, if they knew 20-year-old DeVal, if I'm being honest, they would have said I was an asshole. I don't have a lot of friends from college. I maybe got like 4, because a lot of people ain't fuck with me. I was a problem in the locker room. I had a chip on my, you know how it is, I have a chip on my shoulder. Anybody who I thought was a challenge, I'm challenging you. And then I was like, fuck you, we don't gotta be friends, nigga. Like, you know what I'm saying? I watched my sons start to be like that because they watched me. And I was like, oh, I gotta change that. So with them, I watch them, I say, I don't want my son to make this mistake. Because part of the reason why I got cut in Detroit was because of my attitude. This is a story I never told publicly, but Kippy Brown became the offensive receiver coach. I was busting ass, all OTAs, like crazy. He comes to me at the end of OTAs, man, you keep working hard, you'll be a good 5th receiver. I said, what the fuck you mean 5th receiver? I'm trying to be the best receiver. You know what? Then I walked away. I started venting to Sean Jefferson, who's my receiver coach. While I'm venting to Sean Jefferson about how fucked up that is, Kippy Brown walks right behind me. After that, my reps went like this. And you know what? When I was in my 20s, I blamed Kippy for me getting cut. But now, I'm like, that was to me. You know what I'm saying? Like that, you can't do that. You can't be in a hallway of meeting rooms airing out your grievances with your offensive coordinator and people walking by. So I think of those things and I talk to my sons about emotional maturity. That's my biggest thing in that house. I'm like, hey, you going through something, you feel away? Take a deep breath. Let's talk about it. How does it make you feel? How are you going to respond now that you feel away? Because I don't ever want one of my sons to lose an opportunity because they mouth or they attitude. Like they are a lot like me. So I was trying to be a better person, but also teach them about that.
Hold up. Limitless. Biggest to me, pinning it.
All right. Go to you, Hank. What are your thoughts about that, sir? Emotional maturity.
Man, look, that's one of the things you definitely got to make sure that you have it within yourself, and especially if you have kids. Because if they're not seeing that, if they seeing just the opposite, like DeVal was talking about, they're gonna do the same thing. They're gonna walk that same path that you walk. So as men, we got to make sure we are displaying that, exercising that, and truth be told, that ought to be in order prior to getting any type of relationship. Because you don't, when you get into a relationship, you don't always know what you're going to deal with. You rolling the dice out there. You could vet, you could do all of these things, do the research and do that, but you still don't know what you get. Because what's going on between that woman's ears when you get with her, when she's going through a down period of time, you may not see it during the vetting period. You may not see it the first year. She may not have to deal with something tragic, a loss of a loved one, a loss of a job or something like that. So you didn't see that emotional side to her. She may not handle it well. So somebody got to be emotionally mature in the relationship. Somebody's got to be emotionally strong in the relationship. And I'd rather be the man, because it shouldn't be the woman, because we know they overly emotional. So now if we got two people together, overly emotional, that's a recipe for disaster. So as men, before you go into any relationship, make sure you're on top of your emotions. Make sure you're mature. Make sure you're well seasoned. It doesn't. Your age has nothing to do with it. It's all about knowledge and experience. So go to some of these old heads in your neighborhood, or go to your father, your grandfather, and have conversations with them. How do you handle certain things? How do you handle when you dealing with a loss of a loved one? How did you handle pops when you lost your dad or your mom? How did you deal with that? What's the proper way of doing these things? If that means you need to go to a coach, some type of male mentor, do what you have to do. Because I feel like you have to be, prior to getting any serious relationship, you need to make sure you're emotionally strong, emotionally mature, and make sure emotionally able to handle, especially when you have kids. Because they're going to try you, they're going to test you, they're going to do some things, especially with your sons. We're a little more softer on our daughter, allowing our daughters to cry and get it out and do all that things. Now, sons, We say dry it up, man up. But they also need to have an outlet on how to deal with it. I can't just keep telling them, man up, dry it up all the time. No, I got to tell myself, okay, it's okay. It's okay. Calm down. Take a deep breath. Talk to me. What's happening? What's going on? What you thinking about? What's causing these tears? Why are you upset? So now I got to make sure I'm and that opportunity right there, that's a teachable moment for him on how to deal with your emotions. I have to be most mature. You are setting the boundaries. You're setting the pavement. You're setting the blueprint for your son to operate like that. So I'm gonna land it there.
All right. Go ahead, comrade.
I've always been a believer. I think it's already been said. Hank really hit it. There must be a balance within self as you grow up to be able to handle situations. I think we as men do realize that you do actually have to be balanced in your emotions, because man to man, ish can pop off really quick when you got two combustible elements coming together, and if both of us are out of control, we're gonna hit and somebody's gonna lose. For me personally, the biggest time of emotional maturity or emotional balance is when I lost my daughter. When I lost my daughter, my wife was not my second daughter. My wife wasn't at the hospital that morning. I was just me and my daughter. And that was the actual first time I was able to actually like hug her and hold her. I did a lot of crying and a lot of venting outward at that point. When my wife walked in with my son and my other daughter now, I was strong. Not because I was all well together, but I had balanced myself out in the time that I had by myself, that when they showed up, I held them and allowed them to be as vulnerable as they could be. And it's been that way over the last year. But then understanding where the maturity comes in is understanding that husband to wife now, I have to communicate with my wife. I have to let her know how I felt about this whole transition of our family going from 3 kids down to 2 kids. What does that look like? Do we feel moments where we feel as incomplete as a family? You know, what does this look like when we're taking pictures with 5 of us and now it's only 4 of us? So these little nuances helped me and my wife to understand that we're both seeing eye to eye with how we feel. And it makes sense. It's not out of control. And by that, I was able to also balance myself between my older daughter and her changing now and going into a level of womanhood where I don't really understand it all the time, but I'm able to rationalize with her. And my son sees that. And as young as he is at 2, he's able to understand and go to mama. And even as young as he is, balance himself and say, okay, I see, like Hank said, I see daddy do this. Okay, let me function the same way. So it is really important that we within ourselves as men, we find and learn to find a place of balance. How we balance ourselves. We balance out how we think, and how we think doesn't always and how we feel doesn't dictate how we act. We saw that, for a lack of a better example, Will Smith and selective outrage. I yield.
All right, comrade. I just want to say I appreciate that, man. My condolences to your daughter as well.
Yeah, deepest condolences.
I'm going to go to you, Kenny.
Emotional maturity. I had a female watch a couple episodes that I did, and she said I lack it. then we parsed out a whole conversation of me not being straight-laced in my approach. I said, when I throw on my hard bottoms, my slacks, and my tie, and I sit down with somebody and I help them with a financial house, that's a different Kenny. When I'm doing my technician job and I'm dealing with customers on high profile circuits. That's a different Kenny. Like the man said, emotional maturity is something when you're in a position, you step back and you show your best self. I'm on a panel with King Talk. The gentlemen know that it's just playful banter. I would hope all of them do know that. And then when conversations ramp up, we can always change hats and, change the temperature of the conversations we have to fit the room. I believe emotional maturity is a must when you're a grown man, grown woman, grown person, etc., so that your voice doesn't get lost in the fodder and people take you seriously and have some sort of respect for you, because that shows that you have respect for yourself as for how you communicate. That's a big first when people first meet you. Okay, that's an impression piece. Okay, he seems smart. Now let's delve in deeper. Let's see what he knows. Just like us meeting each other on King Panel, we start getting an assessment of the individual that we're dealing with, just like in life. So emotional maturity is a must. That's the top of the list as a person. And I'm using the gentleman here. I see it from each gentleman here. So that's why we have these conversations and we're able to stay on track. We're able to read temperatures, read the room. We're very knowledgeable on a vast array of things. And I landed there. I just, not to make it long-winded, I think it's a must that you have that and be able to employ it when necessary.
So wait, Kenny, you was playing the whole time?
No
No
old man
shit.
that I used to work with, he said, act dumb, move smart.
All right, go ahead, Trey.
I dig it. Yeah. So I completely agree with the sentiment of Hank and Conrad mentioned my favorite word, balance, and I think it's extremely important. And the one thing that I think about with emotional maturity is consequence, right? There's so many consequences to not exhibiting emotional maturity. For one, as men, we're not afforded grace most of the time. That's a reality, right? We're expected to do, regardless of our background, regardless of our upbringing. It doesn't matter. We're not afforded grace, so it's important to always have that emotional maturity. I've seen people ruin their jobs. I've seen people ruin relationships. I've seen people ruin their money because they don't have emotional maturity. And another word that I think of is discipline, right? As men, we're expected to be disciplined, and we just have to take the time to think about everything that we do, right? One of the things that I would say helped me in life when I was younger, I played chess. And for me, what that made me do was think about what's going to happen when I make this move. I have to think several moves ahead. I would encourage every parent to get their children into chess because it actually helps you develop a frame of mind where you are thinking about consequences, and it helps you learn about people. That's the most important thing, is to understand the effect of what your action is going to produce. And most of us don't think about that. And I understand we are all wired differently. I understand that some of us have to work harder because of maybe chemical imbalances, and there's some things that are out of our control. But as a man, you must control what you can control. And I think it's extremely important for us as fathers to be a part of our children's lives if we can, particularly our sons, because that's the first time that they're really going to learn about emotional maturity. You're the one who they're going to seek answers from when they run into different scenarios that they don't know how to handle. And if they don't have your guidance, then they're already starting off on the wrong foot. Most of the people who don't exhibit emotional maturity didn't have that father figure. And there's a lot of people in jail right now because they did not have emotional maturity, making silly mistakes because they didn't take the time to think about it. And we have to. We have to. That's the main thing. The first thing that you want to do, the first thing, if you are working on it, is just take your time and think about what will happen next before you move. I'll leave it there.